Lights, he said quietly, and Sayal activated a small device, sending a soft glow into the darkness ahead. They stepped inside together, humans and aliens moving cautiously into the vault that had remained sealed for 30,000 years. The passage opened into a large chamber, far bigger than anyone had expected. High ceilings stretched above them, carved smoothly from stone and reinforced with alien technology. Rows of storage units lined the walls, each one designed to hold different types of supplies: weapons, energy cores, medical equipment, tools of every kind. Forthon walked forward slowly, his eyes scanning the chamber, searching for the supplies his people had left behind so long ago. His steps slowed. The storage units were open, empty. Forthon stopped in the center of the chamber, staring at the empty shelves around him. His mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. This could not be right. The vault had been sealed. Nobody could have opened it. Nobody except his own bloodline. No, he whispered, moving faster now, checking each storage unit one by one. No, this is not possible. Rin followed close behind, his scanner working rapidly. Commander, I'm not detecting any of the original supplies. Energy signatures are minimal. Whatever was here, it's gone. That cannot be, Forthon said, his voice rising with disbelief and anger. This vault was sealed with our technology. No human tool could have opened it. Dr. Cho stepped forward carefully, looking around the empty chamber with confusion written across her face. We didn't do this, she said quickly. I promise you, Commander, we never managed to breach this vault. This is exactly how we've always found it. Sealed, untouched. Forthon turned to face her, his eyes filled with fury and confusion. Then explain to me how it is empty. Colonel Ward raised his hand slightly, trying to calm the situation. Maybe there's another explanation. Let us look around before jumping to conclusions. Forthon clenched his fists, forcing himself to breathe slowly. Anger would not solve this mystery. He needed to think clearly. They spread out through the chamber, searching every corner, every storage unit, looking for any clue as to what had happened. Sale found something first, calling the others over to a smaller room attached to the main chamber. Inside they found ancient alien writing carved into the wall, faded but still readable to Forthon's trained eyes. He stepped closer, reading the words slowly, his expression shifting from confusion to shock. What does it say? Dr. Cho asked. Forthon took a moment before answering, his voice quiet. It says the vault was emptied by another scouting team, long before your species even existed. The room went silent. Another scouting team? Colonel Ward repeated. From your own people? Yes, Forthon said, still staring at the ancient writing. According to this, a second team was sent to check on the vault, only a few thousand years after we left. They found the supplies here, still sealed, still safe. But something had changed. New orders had come from our homeworld. He paused, reading further, his expression darkening. The war, he continued. The war that called us away in the first place. It lasted far longer than anyone expected. Resources became scarce across our entire fleet. This second team was ordered to retrieve everything from this vault and bring it back to support the war effort. Dr. Cho frowned. So the supplies were taken by your own people? Not by humans at all? It appears so, Forthon said, his voice heavy with disappointment. They took everything. The energy cores, the weapons, the medical technology. Everything we left here for our eventual return. Rin stepped closer, examining the wall carefully. Why didn't they reseal the vault properly then? Why leave it accessible for future bloodline members if everything had already been taken? Forthon studied the writing again, searching for an answer. Finally, he found it, near the bottom of the carved message. They intended to return the supplies once the war ended, he read aloud. This vault was meant to serve as a symbol, a promise, a place where future generations of our bloodline could return supplies once peace was achieved. But he stopped, his voice catching slightly. But the war never truly ended, he continued. It shifted, changed forms, spread across different regions of our galaxy for thousands of years. By the time real peace came, this vault, this planet, had become nothing more than a distant memory, lost in the chaos of history. Silence filled the chamber as everyone absorbed this information. Vorthan stood still, staring at the empty shelves, understanding sinking in deeply. 30,000 years of waiting, 30,000 years of holding on to hope that this vault remained untouched, safe, waiting for his return. And in reality, it had been empty almost from the very beginning, emptied by his own people not long after they had left. So we scavenged fragments from... what exactly? Dr. Cho asked carefully, breaking the heavy silence. Vorthan turned to look at her, still processing his own emotions. You said you found broken pieces near the surface. Fragments of technology, communication devices, energy cells. Yes, Dr. Cho confirmed. Vorthan thought carefully before answering. The second team likely left behind damaged equipment during their retrieval. Broken pieces not worth carrying back during a war. Perhaps some parts were damaged in the process of removing everything so quickly. So everything we've built, Colonel Ward said slowly. Our advancements, our technology, it all came from leftover scraps. Garbage, essentially, left behind by a retrieval team in a hurry. Vorthan did not answer immediately. There was a strange truth in that realization, one that stung deeply despite its accuracy. In a way, he finally admitted, yes, the humans exchanged uncomfortable glances. Decades of research, countless scientists dedicating their entire careers, human civilization reshaping itself around fragments considered nothing more than broken garbage by the very species who left them behind. Dr. Cho looked around the empty chamber, her expression thoughtful. It's strange, isn't it? Something worthless to you became priceless to us. Vorthan looked at her, considering her words carefully. There was truth in what she said, though it did little to ease the disappointment in his chest. We came here believing we would find a treasure, Vorthan said quietly. Something to bring back to our people. Proof that our long journey had purpose. Instead, we find nothing but empty shelves and old writing explaining a mistake made thousands of years ago. Maybe it's not entirely nothing, Colonel Ward said carefully. Vorthan turned to look at him, curious about his meaning. You said this vault was meant to symbolize a promise, Colonel Ward continued. A place for future generations to return supplies once peace was achieved. Maybe that promise doesn't have to disappear just because the original plan failed. Vorthan considered this thought carefully. It was true. The vault itself, though empty, still stood as a testament to his people's history, a physical reminder of choices made long ago during desperate times. But something else nagged at his mind. A question that had been building since they first discovered the empty chamber. If the second team retrieved everything so long ago, Vorthan said slowly, why did the vault seal only just react to my presence now? Why has it remained locked for 30,000 years, waiting specifically for my bloodline if it was already emptied thousands of years earlier? Rin frowned, considering the question carefully. Perhaps the resealing was intentional, a way to protect the location from other species, even after the supplies were removed. But why leave it sealed for someone like me to find only to discover emptiness? Vorthan asked, frustration clear in his voice. What purpose does that serve? Dr. Cho stepped forward slowly, her scientific curiosity clearly overriding her earlier caution. Perhaps it's not just about physical supplies, she suggested. Perhaps the vault itself holds something else, something less tangible. Vorthan looked at her, intrigued despite his frustration. Explain. You said the writing mentioned a promise, Dr. Cho continued. A symbol for future generations. Maybe the true purpose of this vault, sealed specifically for your bloodline, isn't about physical treasure at all. Maybe it's about information, knowledge left behind specifically for whoever eventually returned. Vorthan turned back toward the wall, studying the ancient writing more carefully now, searching for anything he might have missed. Sale and Dorn began searching the rest of the chamber again, checking every corner, every hidden compartment they could find. It was Dorn who finally called out, his voice echoing through the empty chamber. "Commander, I found something." They gathered quickly around a hidden compartment Dorn had discovered behind a loose stone panel at the back of the smaller room. Inside, carefully preserved, was a small device glowing faintly with a soft golden light, clearly designed specifically to be opened only by Vorthan's bloodline. Vorthan reached out carefully, lifting the device from its hidden compartment. As his fingers touched its surface, the golden light brightened, and a small holographic image flickered to life above the device. The image showed a face, an older alien, clearly a member of Vorthan's own bloodline, standing in this very chamber long ago. The recorded message began to play, the voice filled with urgency and sadness. "If you are seeing this message," the recording said, "then our bloodline has finally returned to this world. I am sorry that you find this vault empty. Our people took the supplies during desperate times, believing survival mattered more than promises." Vorthan listened closely, his eyes fixed on the flickering image. "But I leave you this message with hope," the recording continued. "This world, this planet Earth, holds something far more valuable than the supplies we once buried here. During our brief time retrieving the vault's contents, we studied this world carefully. We observed its potential, its strange and remarkable inhabitants." The recording paused briefly before continuing. "These humans, primitive as they seemed at the time, possess a spirit unlike any species we have encountered across countless worlds. A resilience, a capacity for growth that defies logic. I believe given enough time they could become something extraordinary." Vorthan's eyes widened slightly as he listened, glancing briefly toward Colonel Ward and Dr. Cho, both of whom stood silently, absorbing every word. "I leave this vault sealed not as a treasure chest but as a message." The recording continued. "A reminder to whoever returns from our bloodline. Do not judge this world by what we took from it. Judge it instead by what it becomes on its own. If you find this message, it likely means humanity has grown, evolved, perhaps even surpassed our early expectations." The recording flickered slightly before continuing one final time. "Approach them not as conquerors reclaiming lost property, but as observers, witnessing the remarkable journey of a species we once underestimated. Whatever you find here, human or otherwise, I hope you choose wisdom over anger, understanding over conflict." The message ended, the holographic image fading into darkness once again. Vorthan stood silently for a long moment, absorbing the weight of his ancestors' words. Around him, the humans remained quiet, clearly moved by the unexpected message. "Your ancestor knew," Dr. Cho said softly, breaking the silence. "Somehow he knew we would grow into something more." Vorthan looked around the empty chamber once more, his anger slowly fading, replaced by a strange mixture of understanding and curiosity. "It seems," he said quietly, "that we did not come here to reclaim lost supplies after all." Colonel Ward studied Vorthan carefully. "Then why did you come?" Vorthan turned to face him directly, his expression thoughtful. "Perhaps without realizing it, we came here to witness exactly what my ancestor hoped we would find, a species that grew far beyond anyone's expectations." But even as he said these words, a new realization struck him, one that filled him with sudden unease. If his ancestors had left this message thousands of years ago, hoping future generations would approach humanity with understanding rather than anger, it meant others might have known about Earth's potential long before now. And if others knew, others besides his own people, then Earth might not be as hidden or forgotten as everyone had assumed. "Rin," Vorthan said suddenly, urgency creeping into his voice. "Scan the surrounding space. Immediately." Rin quickly activated his scanner, running a wide search through the ship's systems remotely. Moments later, his face turned pale, his hands trembling slightly as he stared at the results. "Commander," he said slowly, "we are not alone here. Another ship has entered the system. Its signature. It does not match our own people." Vorthan's heart sank as understanding dawned on him. If another species had also discovered Earth's location, drawn by old records or their own forgotten history, then humanity's true test was only just beginning. And time was quickly running out. The words hung heavy in the underground chamber. Another ship, another species. Vorthon felt the weight of 30,000 years suddenly pressing down on him in a new way. This was no longer just about an empty vault or a forgotten promise. This was about Earth's survival. How close is this ship? Vorthon demanded, moving quickly toward the exit of the vault. Rin checked his readings again, his fingers moving rapidly across his scanner. Entering orbit now, Commander. Their approach pattern suggests they are not trying to hide. Unlike us, they are broadcasting an open signal. Broadcasting what? Colonel Ward asked, following closely behind, his soldiers falling into formation around the group. A general announcement, Rin said, translating quickly. Something about claiming territory, resource rights. Vorthon's expression darkened. He knew exactly what that meant. Some species, far less patient and far less careful than his own people, believed that any unclaimed resource belonged to whoever arrived first with enough force to take it. If they detected Earth's technological growth, its population, its resources, they might see humanity not as a civilization to respect, but as an obstacle to remove. We need to get above ground immediately, Vorthon said, and we need to see exactly what we are dealing with. They moved quickly through the facility, back up through the tunnels, past confused soldiers who had been given hurried explanations about the strange alliance now forming between their commanding officers and the alien visitors. By the time they reached the surface, the night sky had changed. A massive ship hovered high above the base, far larger than Vorthon's own vessel, its dark hull illuminated by strange red lights along its edges. It made no attempt to hide, its presence obvious even to untrained human eyes. Dr. Cho stared upward, her mouth slightly open in shock. That's enormous. A warship, Vorthon said grimly, studying its design carefully. Built for conflict, not exploration. Colonel Ward's radio crackled to life, urgent voices reporting similar sightings from military bases around the world. Vorthon could hear the panic rising in the transmissions, human forces scrambling to understand what was happening, fighter jets being prepared, defense systems activating across the globe. They're broadcasting a message to the entire planet, Rin said, adjusting his translator device. Demanding immediate surrender of all technological resources. They believe Earth to be an abandoned colony world, ripe for claiming. Vorthon turned sharply toward Colonel Ward. How quickly can your world's leaders respond to a united threat like this? Colonel Ward hesitated, glancing at his soldiers before answering honestly. Humanity isn't exactly known for quick, unified decisions. Countries argue, leaders disagree. It could take days, even weeks, to organize any kind of coordinated response. You do not have weeks, Vorthon said sharply. You may not even have hours. Inside the facility's command center, chaos unfolded rapidly. Screens displayed reports from military bases across multiple continents, all confirming the same terrifying sighting. Massive alien ships appearing in orbit, broadcasting the same ultimatum in dozens of different languages, clearly using translated data, gathered from years of monitoring Earth's communications. Dr. Cho worked quickly alongside human scientists, translating what they could from the alien signals with Rin's assistance, trying to understand exactly what these new visitors wanted and how far they were willing to go to get it. Far above Earth, a massive ship broke through the silence of space. It was not made of metal like human ships. Its surface moved like liquid, shifting colors under the starlight. Inside, a tall figure stood in front of a glowing screen. His name was Vorthon, commander of the scouting fleet. His eyes, dark and sharp, stared at a small, blinking dot on the screen. That dot was Earth. Confirm the coordinates, Vorthon said, his voice low and steady. A smaller alien, thin and pale blue, tapped on a control panel. Confirmed, Commander. This is the planet. The vault should still be there, buried deep beneath the surface. Vorthon did not smile. He had waited a long time for this moment. 30,000 years, to be exact. His people had left this planet in a hurry, so long ago that even the memory of it had become a myth among his crew. Only the old records remained, hidden in the deepest archives of his ship. 30,000 years, Forthon whispered. This world should still be empty. Nothing but wild animals and empty forests. He remembered the stories his ancestors told. Long ago, his people were explorers, traveling from star to star, collecting resources, studying strange worlds. Earth was just one stop among many. They had built a supply vault here, a deep, hidden storage filled with advanced technology, energy cores, medical devices, and weapons. It was meant to be a temporary stop. They planned to return within a few hundred years. But something happened. Something forced them to leave in a hurry. Forthon closed his eyes for a moment, letting the old memory surface. Not his own memory. These were memories passed down through generations, stored in the ship's ancient records. 30,000 years ago, the scouting fleet had landed on Earth. The planet was young then, wild and untouched. Thick forests covered the land. Rivers ran clean and fast. Strange creatures roamed the plains, giant beasts with fur and tusks, and small groups of primitive humans, hiding in caves, using fire for the first time. The scouting fleet's engineers built the vault deep underground, far from where the primitive humans lived. They filled it with everything they thought would be useful for a future visit. Power cells that could last for centuries, medical technology that could heal almost any wound, tools that could shape metal like clay, and weapons that could level a mountain if needed. They sealed the vault with a code only their bloodline could open. Then, without warning, an emergency signal came from their home world. A war had broken out, far away among the stars. Every scouting ship was called back immediately. There was no time to take the supplies, no time to plan a careful return. The fleet left in chaos, engines burning bright as they rushed away from Earth, leaving the vault behind, buried and forgotten. The war lasted for centuries. By the time it ended, so many records were lost, so many ships destroyed, that most of the scouting missions became nothing more than old stories. Earth became a myth, a whisper in old files that nobody bothered to check, until now. Forthon opened his eyes. "Prepare for descent," he said. Quietly, "We are not here to be seen." The pale blue alien, named Rin, looked nervous. "Commander, our scans show something strange." "What kind of strange?" Rin's fingers moved quickly over the panel. "Energy readings, lots of them. And radio signals, thousands of them, all across the planet." Forthon frowned. "That is not possible. This planet had no advanced species, only primitive humans, barely able to make fire." "I am reading the data correctly, Commander," Rin said, his voice shaking slightly. "There are lights on the dark side of the planet, not natural lights, structures, cities." For the first time in a long while, Forthon felt something close to worry. He walked closer to the screen, watching as new images loaded. The dark side of Earth was not dark at all. It glowed with thousands of tiny lights, spread across the land like scattered stars. "Cities," Forthon repeated softly. "Show me closer." The screen zoomed in. Tall buildings stood in clusters, glowing with light. Roads stretched between them, filled with moving vehicles. Metal structures floated in the water. Something in the sky moved too fast to be a bird, an aircraft, leaving a white trail behind it. Rin's hands trembled. "Commander, this should not be here. Our records say this species was still using stone tools. How did they build all this in 30,000 years?" Forthon did not answer right away. He stared at the screen, his mind racing. 30,000 years was a short time for most civilizations to grow. His own people had taken over 100,000 years to reach the stars, but this species, these humans, had gone from stone tools to glowing cities in a fraction of that time. "Something helped them," Forthon said quietly. "Something sped up their growth." A cold feeling crept into his chest. He thought of the vault, the advanced technology buried deep beneath the surface. Could it be? "No," he said, shaking his head. "The vault was sealed. Only our bloodline could open it. It is impossible." But even as he said the words, doubt filled his mind. The ship descended slowly, cloaked from human detection systems. It moved through the clouds like a shadow, invisible to radar, invisible to eyes. Vorthan stood at the front of the ship, watching the city lights grow closer. "This location," he said, pointing to a spot on the map. "This is where the vault should be." Rin checked the coordinates. His face went pale. "Commander, that is directly beneath a large human structure, a building, very advanced based on the energy readings." Vorthan's jaw tightened. "Show me." The screen displayed a massive facility, surrounded by fences and lights. Vehicles moved in and out through guarded gates. Human figures walked between buildings, wearing strange clothing, some carrying tools, others carrying weapons. "This is not a random city building," Rin said. "This looks like a military base or a research facility." Vorthan felt his hearts, both of them, beat faster. "They built this directly above our vault." "Do you think they found it?" Rin asked. Vorthan did not answer. He didn't know. But the fear was growing inside him, cold and sharp. The ship landed silently in a forest a few kilometers from the human facility, hidden by trees and darkness. Vorthan gathered a small team, Rin and two others, Sael and Dorn, both trained scouts with years of experience exploring unknown worlds. "We move quietly," Vorthan said, checking his equipment. "We do not make contact with the humans unless necessary. We find the vault, we check its condition, and we leave before sunrise." "And if it has been discovered?" Sael asked, his voice calm but serious. Vorthan paused. "Then we deal with that when we know for certain." The four aliens stepped out of the ship into the cool night air. The forest was quiet, filled with the sounds of insects and rustling leaves. It felt almost peaceful, almost like the earth Vorthan remembered from the old records. But the glow of city lights in the distance reminded him that everything had changed. They moved through the trees, using devices that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible to human eyes. Vorthan led the way, following the old coordinates burned into his mind. As they got closer to the human facility, the forest thinned out. Metal fences appeared, topped with wire. Bright lights lit up the open ground around the buildings. Cameras turned slowly, scanning the area. "Advanced security," Dorn whispered. "More advanced than I expected from a species this young." Vorthan studied the base carefully. There were guards at the gates, holding devices that looked like weapons. Trucks moved in and out, carrying equipment. In the center of the facility stood a large building, taller than the rest, with strange antennas on its roof. "The vault entrance should be beneath that central building," Vorthan said, pointing. Rin checked his scanner. "Confirmed. I am reading unusual energy signatures beneath the structure. It matches the vault's power signature." "Then it is still sealed," Vorthan said, feeling a small wave of relief. If it had been opened and its energy source disturbed, the readings would be different. But the relief did not last long. "Wait," Rin said, frowning at his scanner. "There is something else. Another energy signature moving inside the facility. It is human-like but not natural. Something inside them is glowing with the same energy as our own technology." Vorthan's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "I don't know how to explain it, Commander," Rin said, his voice tight with confusion. "It is as if some of the humans themselves have our technology inside their bodies." The four aliens stood in silence, staring at the glowing building in the distance. Vorthan felt the cold fear return, stronger this time. "We need to get closer," he said finally. "We need to know the truth." They moved along the edge of the fence, searching for a way inside. Sael found a weak point, a section of fence with a broken sensor, likely due to age. Using their tools, they cut through it quietly and slipped onto the base grounds, staying low, moving between shadows. The base was larger than it looked from a distance. Buildings stretched in every direction, filled with humming machines and glowing lights. Vorthan could hear voices in the distance, human voices, speaking in a language his translator could partly understand thanks to old recordings from 30,000 years ago. mixed with newer signals his ship had intercepted. They reached a maintenance entrance near the central building. It was locked, but Dorn made quick work of the mechanism, using tools far more advanced than anything humans could imagine. Inside, the air was cool and filled with the hum of machines. Long hallways stretched ahead, lit with soft white light. Vorthon led his team deeper, following the pull of the vault's energy signature. They passed rooms filled with computers, screens showing strange symbols and numbers. In one room, through a window, Vorthon saw human scientists working around a large, glowing object. His breath caught in his throat. It was a piece of alien technology, damaged, incomplete, but unmistakably from his own people's design. "Commander," Rin whispered, his voice shaking. "That is one of our energy cores. They have been studying it." Vorthon felt a chill run through him. He motioned for his team to keep moving, deeper into the facility, toward the source of the vault's signal. They found a stairway leading down, guarded by a heavy metal door with a keypad. Sile quickly bypassed the lock, and the door slid open silently. Below, a long tunnel stretched into darkness, lit by dim emergency lights. The air grew colder as they descended. Vorthon could feel the familiar hum of the vault's power core growing stronger with every step. At the bottom of the stairs, they found it. The vault door stood before them, massive and ancient, exactly as it had been left 30,000 years ago. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols only Vorthon's bloodline could read. The door was closed, sealed. But something was wrong. Scratches covered the metal surface. Tool marks, human-made, scattered across the door where humans had clearly tried to force it open. Wires ran from a nearby machine into the wall beside the vault, connected to sensors that hummed with quiet energy. "They found it," Vorthon said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They found the vault." Rin scanned the door carefully. "The seal is still intact, Commander. They have not been able to open it. Not yet." Relief and fear mixed together in Vorthon's chest. The vault was still sealed, protected by technology far beyond human understanding. But the humans knew it was here. They had been trying to open it for who knew how long. "We need to check the surrounding areas," Vorthon said. "Find out how much they know. Find out what they have already taken, if anything." The team moved further into the facility, searching through storage rooms and laboratories. In one room, they found shelves filled with small alien artifacts, broken pieces of technology, fragments of tools, scraps of metal that must have been found near the vault entrance over the years. In another room, they found something worse. Detailed blueprints on the walls, human handwriting scattered across diagrams that clearly showed pieces of alien technology, partially understood, partially reconstructed. "They have been studying us for a long time," Dorn said grimly. "Reverse engineering our technology." Vorthon clenched his fists. 30,000 years of waiting, and this is what he found. Humans crawling through the remains of his people's forgotten supplies, picking apart pieces of advanced technology, slowly learning secrets they were never meant to know. "This changes things," Vorthon said quietly. "This changes everything." Suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the facility, red lights flashing along the walls. Voices shouted in the distance, footsteps echoing through the hallways, coming closer. "They found us," Sal shouted. Vorthon's eyes widened. Human soldiers appeared at the end of the hallway, weapons raised, shouting commands in their strange language. The aliens froze for just a moment, caught in the open, their cloaking devices unable to hide them from eyes that were now looking directly at them. For the first time in 30,000 years, humans and the alien scouts stood face to face, and nobody knew what would happen next. The alarm kept blaring, red light flashing along the tunnel walls. Human soldiers stood at the end of the hallway, their weapons pointed forward, shouting words that Vorthon's translator struggled to catch fully. Only a few words came through clearly. "Don't move. Stay where you are." Vorthon raised a hand, signaling his team to freeze. His heart pounded in his chest, but his mind stayed sharp, calculating every possible option. Fighting was not the plan. Fighting was never the plan. "Hold your positions," he said quietly to his team. "Do not attack. Not yet." Sael's hand hovered near his weapon, his body tense. "Commander, if they fire first—" "They will not fire first," Vorthon said, though he was not entirely sure of that himself. "Humans are cautious by nature. They will want answers before violence." The soldiers moved closer, forming a half-circle around the four aliens. Their weapons were crude compared to alien technology, but Vorthon noticed something troubling. Some of the soldiers carried devices that glowed faintly, devices that looked eerily similar to alien energy weapons, just cruder, less refined, clearly built by studying broken alien technology. A man stepped forward from behind the soldiers. He wore a different uniform, cleaner, with markings that suggested rank or authority. He studied the four aliens carefully, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Identify yourselves," the man said slowly, his voice firm despite the tension in the room. Vorthon stepped forward slightly, keeping his hands visible, empty of weapons. "We mean no harm," he said, his translator converting his words into rough human speech. "We came for something that belongs to us." The soldiers shifted nervously at the sound of his voice, some lowering their weapons slightly out of surprise, others gripping tighter. The man in charge raised a hand, signaling his soldiers to hold their fire. "You can talk," he said, sounding both surprised and cautious. "Good. Then you can explain why you are trespassing on a restricted military facility." "This facility was built above something that belongs to my people," Vorthon said. "A storage vault, buried long before your kind built cities." The man's eyes narrowed. "You're saying that thing beneath us, those artifacts we've been studying, they're yours?" "Yes," Vorthon said simply. Silence filled the tunnel for a long moment. The soldiers exchanged glances, confusion and disbelief written across their faces. Even the man in charge seemed unsure how to respond. "My name is Colonel Ethan Ward," the man finally said. "I'm in command of this facility, and I think we have a lot to discuss." They were led to a secure room deep within the facility, away from the vault, away from the soldiers who still eyed them with suspicion. The room was simple: a metal table, chairs, bright lights overhead, and cameras in every corner recording everything. Colonel Ward sat across from Vorthon, while Rin, Sale, and Dorn stood behind their commander, watching everything carefully. Two other humans joined the room, a woman with sharp eyes who introduced herself as Dr. Elena Cho, a scientist who had studied the vault's technology for years, and a younger man who stayed quiet, watching everything with a notebook in hand. "Let's start simple," Colonel Ward said, leaning forward. "Who are you? Where do you come from? And why now, after all this time?" Vorthon studied the humans carefully before answering. "My name is Vorthon. I am a commander of a scouting fleet, sent to retrieve supplies left on this planet a very long time ago." Dr. Cho leaned forward, her curiosity clear despite the tense situation. "How long ago exactly?" Vorthon paused, calculating the number in human terms. 30,000 of your years." The room went silent again. Dr. Cho's eyes widened, and even Colonel Ward, who had clearly prepared himself for strange answers, looked shaken. "That's not possible," the younger man muttered almost to himself. 30,000 years ago, humans were barely more than hunters and gatherers," Vorthon finished for him. "Yes, I am aware. My people left supplies here expecting to return within a few hundred years. We were called away suddenly, for reasons that do not concern you. We were unable to return until now." Dr. Cho exchanged a look with Colonel Ward. "So the vault, the technology we've been finding pieces of for decades, it's real. It's actually alien." "You already suspected this," Vorthon said, watching her expression carefully. "We had theories," Dr. Cho admitted, "but nothing concrete. Pieces of strange metal, fragments of technology beyond anything we could build. We found them decades ago, buried near this location. We built this facility around the site to study it properly." Vorthon felt a tightness in his chest. "How much have you learned?" Dr. Cho hesitated, glancing at Colonel Ward before answering. "More than you probably want to hear." Colonel Ward gestured for one of the soldiers to bring something into the room. A moment later, a metal case was placed on the table, opened carefully to reveal a small device inside. A piece of alien technology, cracked and worn but clearly functional. Vorthan's eyes widened slightly at the sight. He recognized it immediately. "That is a communication core," he said quietly. "From my people's fleet. We found several pieces like this scattered near the surface, buried not too deep," Dr. Cho explained. "Decades of excavation, careful study. We managed to understand fragments of the technology, enough to improve our own communication systems, our energy systems, even some of our medical technology." Vorthan's jaw tightened. "You built your advancement on our forgotten equipment." "We didn't know it was forgotten," Colonel Ward said firmly. "For all we knew, it was abandoned. Lost technology from a civilization that no longer existed. We had no way of knowing you would ever return." Vorthan said nothing, but the anger in his eyes was clear. 30,000 years of careful planning, 30,000 years of assuming the vault would remain untouched, and instead, an entire species had grown around it, slowly picking apart pieces of alien technology, using it to leap forward in ways that should have taken them thousands of years longer. "The vault itself," Vorthan said finally, his voice tight. "Have you managed to open it?" Dr. Cho shook her head. "No, we've tried for years. The seal is unlike anything we've encountered. Whatever technology guards it is far beyond what we scavenged from the surface fragments." A small wave of relief passed through Vorthan. At least the vault itself remained untouched. Whatever technology remained inside was still safe. "Good," he said. "That vault is not meant for your kind." The room grew tense at his words. Colonel Ward's expression hardened. "With respect, Commander Vorthan, that vault has been sitting beneath human soil for 30,000 years. We built our lives around it, our research around it, entire careers dedicated to understanding it. You can't just walk in and claim ownership after all this time." "It was never yours to claim," Vorthan said sharply. "It belongs to my people. We buried it here, we intended to return for it, and we are here now." The tension in the room grew heavier. Sael shifted behind Vorthan, his hand twitching near his weapon again. The soldiers outside the room, visible through a small window, tightened their grip on their own weapons, sensing the rising conflict. Dr. Cho raised her hand slightly, trying to calm the situation. "Let's not jump to conclusions here. Nobody wants a conflict. We're simply saying that this situation is more complicated than a simple ownership claim." Vorthan took a slow breath, forcing himself to calm down. Violence would solve nothing. Not yet. He needed more information first. "Tell me everything," he said finally. "Show me exactly what you have learned from our technology. I need to understand how much damage has been done." Dr. Cho led them to a different section of the facility, a large laboratory filled with screens, tools, and rows of shelves holding carefully preserved alien artifacts. Vorthan walked through the room slowly, studying each piece with a mixture of sadness and anger. Broken power cells lined one shelf, their energy long drained but their design unmistakably alien. Fragments of hull metal sat in glass cases, studied and measured by human scientists over decades. In the center of the room stood a large screen displaying diagrams, human attempts to recreate alien technology. Some successful, some clearly failed experiments. "This is where most of our technological advancement over the past century came from," Dr. Cho explained. "Communication satellites, energy-efficient power grids, even some of our medical scanning technology, all inspired by fragments we found scattered near the vault's location." Vorthan stopped in front of a case holding a small cracked device. He recognized it as a basic scanning tool, something his people would consider almost primitive by their own standards. And yet, to humans it had clearly sparked massive technological leaps. "You built your entire modern world on scraps," he said quietly, almost to himself. "We built it on curiosity and hard work," Dr. Cho corrected gently. "The scraps just gave us a push in the right direction. We still had to figure out how everything worked ourselves. It took decades of research, countless failed experiments, Brilliant scientists dedicating their lives to understanding fragments of technology far beyond their own time. Vorthon turned to look at her, studying her expression carefully. There was pride in her voice, but also honesty. She was not trying to claim ownership over something that was not hers. She was simply explaining the truth. This world was supposed to remain untouched, Vorthon said. A quiet planet, growing slowly, exactly as we left it. Instead, we returned to find cities of light, weapons built from our own scavenged technology, and a species far more advanced than we ever expected. Is that a bad thing? Dr. Cho asked carefully. Oh. Vorthon did not answer right away. He looked around the laboratory again at the careful organization. The dedication clearly poured into understanding alien technology that should have remained buried and forgotten. I do not know yet, he admitted finally. As they continued through the facility, Rin's scanner suddenly beeped sharply, catching everyone's attention. He studied the readings carefully, his expression turning serious. Commander, he said quietly, I am detecting movement near the vault entrance. Something is happening down there. Vorthon's eyes narrowed. What kind of movement? Multiple energy signatures, human but altered, similar to what I detected earlier, before we entered the facility. Colonel Ward frowned, exchanging a glance with Dr. Cho. That would be Sector 7, he said slowly. Our specialized research team. Specialized how? Vorthon asked, a cold feeling creeping into his chest. Dr. Cho hesitated before answering. There's a part of our research we haven't mentioned yet. A more advanced project. Vorthon's patience was wearing thin. Explain. Now. Colonel Ward sighed heavily, seeming to make a difficult decision. Follow me. It's easier to show you than explain. They were led through another series of hallways, deeper into the facility, until they reached a heavily guarded door. Colonel Ward entered a code and the door slid open, revealing a large room filled with advanced medical equipment. In the center of the room stood several humans, connected to machines through wires and tubes. Their bodies glowed faintly with a familiar energy, the same energy signature Rin had detected from the vault itself. Vorthon froze, staring at the scene before him. What have you done? Dr. Cho stepped forward, her voice steady but cautious. Years ago, we discovered a way to integrate small pieces of alien technology directly into human biology. Enhanced healing, improved strength, even extended lifespan. It was experimental, dangerous, but the results were remarkable. Vorthon's heart pounded as understanding dawned on him. You used our technology to alter your own bodies. We used what we found to try and improve human life, Colonel Ward said firmly. These volunteers understood the risks. They chose this path willingly. Vorthon looked at the humans connected to the machines, their eyes closed, their bodies glowing faintly with alien energy. Anger and disbelief mixed together in his chest. 30,000 years of waiting. And this is what he found. Not just stolen technology, but technology twisted and reshaped, merged directly into human bodies in ways his own people had never intended. This is beyond anything I imagined, Vorthon said, his voice low and dangerous. You have taken our forgotten supplies and created something entirely new. Something dangerous. Or something incredible, Dr. Cho said quietly, depending on how you choose to see it. Before Vorthon could respond, alarms blared once again through the facility, louder this time, more urgent. A soldier burst into the room, breathless and panicked. Colonel, the vault, it's reacting to something. The seal markings are glowing. Everyone turned to look at Vorthon, whose eyes had widened in shock. That should not be possible, he whispered. Unless... He turned sharply toward Rin. Are the coordinates I gave earlier absolutely certain? Is this truly the original vault, untouched since we sealed it? Rin checked his scanner quickly, his expression turning pale. Commander, the seal is reacting to your presence, your bloodline. It recognizes you. Vorthon's mind raced. If the vault was reacting now, after 30,000 years of silence, it meant only one thing. It was finally ready to open, and nobody, human or alien, was prepared for what waited inside. The tunnel felt colder than before as Vorthon rushed down the stairway, his team close behind him. Colonel Ward and Dr. Cho followed, along with a group of nervous soldiers, all of them staring at the vault door ahead. The ancient symbols on the door glowed with a soft blue light, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Vorthon stopped in front of it, staring at the light in disbelief. For 30,000 years, this door had remained dark and silent. Now it recognized him. "It's reacting to your bloodline," Rin said again, checking his scanner. "The seal is beginning to release." "Everyone stand back," Vorthon ordered, his voice sharp with tension. Colonel Ward hesitated, then motioned for his soldiers to move away from the door, though he himself stayed close, his curiosity clearly outweighing his caution. Dr. Cho stood beside him, her eyes wide, watching the glowing symbols with fascination. Vorthon stepped closer to the door and placed his hand against one of the glowing symbols. A soft hum filled the tunnel, growing louder with each passing second. The symbols brightened, shifting from blue to a bright white light. Slowly, with a deep grinding sound, the massive door began to move. Dust and stale air rushed out from the opening as the door slid apart, revealing a dark passage beyond. Vorthon felt his heart pounding in his chest. 30,000 years of waiting, of planning, of hoping. This was the moment his people had dreamed of for generations. "They call themselves the Draxari," Rin explained, studying the translated data. "A species known for aggressive expansion. They've likely been monitoring old records similar to ours, searching for forgotten worlds rich with resources." "And if we refuse their demands?" Colonel Ward asked, though the answer was clear from the tension in the room. "They will take by force what they cannot claim through surrender," Vorthon said simply. Panic spread quickly through the command center as more reports came in. Military leaders from different nations began communicating rapidly, some suggesting immediate armed resistance, others cautioning against provoking a clearly superior technological force. Vorthon watched the chaos unfold, his mind working quickly. He had spent his entire life as a scout, not a warrior, not a diplomat, but something inside him refused to simply stand by and watch this fragile, remarkable species face annihilation because of his own people's forgotten mistakes. "There may be another option," Vorthon said suddenly, drawing everyone's attention. "What kind of option?" Colonel Ward asked. "My ship carries defensive technology," Vorthon explained. "Not enough to defeat a warship of that size directly, but enough to demonstrate that Earth is not entirely defenseless. Enough, perhaps, to convince them that claiming this world would not be as easy as they assume." "You want to bluff them?" Dr. Cho asked, surprise clear in her voice. "Not entirely," Vorthon said. "But sometimes strength does not come from having the greatest power. Sometimes it comes from proving you are willing to stand firm, no matter the cost." Colonel Ward studied Vorthon carefully, considering his words. "And if this bluff fails? If they decide to attack regardless?" Vorthon met his gaze steadily. "Then we make certain that taking this world costs them far more than they expect." Word spread quickly across the planet, nations setting aside old rivalries and disagreements as the true scale of the threat became clear. For the first time in human history, military forces from different countries began coordinating rapidly, sharing information, combining resources, all guided quietly by Vorthon's knowledge of the approaching alien threat. Fighter jets scrambled into the skies. Naval fleets moved into position. Missile defense systems activated across multiple continents. It was not enough to defeat a species as advanced as the Draxari directly, but it was enough to show unity, enough to demonstrate that humanity would not simply surrender without resistance. Above the planet, Vorthon's own ship rose from its hidden location, joining the coordinated human defense systems, its cloaking device disabled deliberately, allowing the Draxari ship to see clearly that Earth had allies, however small in number. Inside the Draxari warship, sensors detected the sudden coordinated activity below. Vorthon's ship broadcasted an open channel, directly connecting to the Draxari's communication system. "This world is under the protection of my people," Vorthon said firmly, his voice steady despite the tension. You will find that claiming it comes at a cost far greater than you anticipate. There was a long pause before the Drexari responded, their voice cold and mechanical through the translation systems. Your presence here is unexpected, Scout. Explain your interest in this primitive world. This world is no longer primitive, Vorthon replied. You will find its people far more capable than your records suggest. Another pause followed, longer this time. Sensors aboard Vorthon's ship detected the Drexari vessel scanning the planet's surface more thoroughly, analyzing the coordinated military response, the advanced technology visible in human defense systems, technology partially built from alien fragments discovered decades earlier. Interesting, the Drexari voice finally responded. This species has developed technology inconsistent with typical primitive worlds. They have grown far beyond expectations, Vorthon said, and they do not stand alone. Down on the surface, Colonel Ward watched tensely as reports streamed in from around the world. Military leaders held their breath, waiting to see whether the alien warship would withdraw or attack. Dr. Cho stood beside him, her hands trembling slightly as she watched the screens. Do you think it will work? She asked quietly. I don't know, Colonel Ward admitted honestly. But if there's one thing I've learned about humanity, it's that we've never backed down easily, even against impossible odds. Above them, the standoff continued. Vorthon remained calm, his ship positioned firmly between the Drexari vessel and the planet below, a small but clear symbol of resistance against overwhelming odds. Your resistance is illogical, the Drexari voice finally said. One scouting vessel cannot defend an entire planet against our forces. Perhaps not alone, Vorthon admitted, but this world's people have shown remarkable growth in a short time. Attacking now would prove costly, both in resources and reputation. Word spreads quickly among the stars, even to species as isolated as my own. Do you truly wish to be remembered as the ones who wasted resources conquering a world capable of resisting, rather than negotiating peacefully? There was a long silence from the Drexari ship. Vorthon waited patiently, his heart's pounding, fully aware that this single moment could determine the fate of an entire species. Finally, the response came. Our scans confirm unusual technological advancement inconsistent with early development patterns, the Drexari voice said slowly. This world's growth appears unnatural. Explain. Vorthon considered his answer carefully before responding. This world's people found remnants of advanced technology decades ago, remnants left behind by my own people's forgotten history here. Rather than simply using it, they studied it, understood it, and built upon it themselves. Their achievement is entirely their own. Another pause followed, this one filled with something that almost sounded like reconsideration. A species capable of independent advancement from limited fragments, the Drexari voice finally said, presents future value beyond immediate resource extraction. Aggressive action would be inefficient. Vorthon felt a small wave of relief wash over him, though he remained cautious, aware that the situation could still shift at any moment. We propose an alternative arrangement, the Drexari continued. Trade negotiations rather than conquest. This world's technological growth, if properly guided, could provide long-term value exceeding immediate resource extraction. Vorthon considered this offer carefully. It was not a perfect solution, but it was infinitely better than outright conflict. I will relay your proposal to the world's leaders, Vorthon said. But understand this clearly. Any future negotiations will happen on equal terms, not through threats or intimidation. There was a brief pause before the Drexari responded, their tone slightly different now, carrying a strange note of respect. Understood, Scout. We will withdraw for now, pending further negotiation. Slowly, the massive Drexari warship began to retreat, moving away from Earth's orbit, disappearing into the darkness of space as quickly as it had arrived. Relief spread quickly across the planet as reports confirmed the alien ship's withdrawal. Military forces stood down slowly, though tension remained high, knowing that this was likely just the beginning of humanity's true introduction to a much larger, more complicated universe. Back at the underground facility, Vorthon stood quietly with Colonel Ward and Dr. Cho, watching as the chaos slowly settled into cautious relief. "You saved us," Dr. Cho said quietly, looking at Vorthon with newfound respect. "Your people could have easily reclaimed what was left here, or worse, ignored our situation entirely. Instead, you stood beside us against a far greater threat." Vorthon considered her words carefully before responding. "My ancestor left a message here, hoping future generations would approach your world with understanding rather than judgment. I believe today I finally understood exactly what he meant." Colonel Ward extended a hand toward Vorthon, a human gesture of respect and gratitude. Vorthon studied it for a moment before understanding its meaning, reaching out to accept the gesture in return. "What happens now?" Colonel Ward asked. "Between our peoples, I mean." Vorthon considered the question seriously. "Now, perhaps we begin a different kind of relationship. Not one of forgotten supplies or misunderstood history, but one built on mutual respect and honest cooperation." Dr. Cho smiled slightly, despite the exhaustion clear on her face. 30,000 years, and it all comes down to this moment. Vorthon looked upward, toward the sky where the Draxari ship had disappeared, then back toward the empty vault beneath their feet. "Perhaps this vault was never truly about supplies," he said quietly. "Perhaps my ancestor understood even then that the greatest treasure this world held was not something buried underground, but something growing steadily above it, the resilience and potential of humanity itself." As dawn broke slowly over the horizon, painting the sky with soft colors of orange and gold, Vorthon felt a strange sense of peace settle over him. 30,000 years of waiting, searching, and misunderstanding had finally led to this single, important moment. Earth's true test was only just beginning, but for the first time, humanity would not face it alone, and somewhere far beyond the stars, word would soon spread of a small, remarkable world that had proven itself capable of standing tall, even against overwhelming odds. The story of Earth was no longer just about the past. It was about the beginning of an entirely new future.